All right, Bears fans, welcome to another episode of Bare Bones. I am Mason West, and as always, and sometimes I am joined by Danny Meehan. Danny, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mason. I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Not bad. We were just talking, right? Like we're both a little tired today. Things are a little more chill. I mean, coming off, I think spent most of the week just being really excited about last week, and then as you get closer and closer to a Lions game, it's just not as exciting. So it's hard, but it's we're here, and hopefully it's another chance for this offense to take another step forward.
Yeah, I mean, and it's especially exciting in terms of when you talk about the offense itself. Like, you can see the very real transition of what they were trying to do earlier in the year versus where they was like true drop back to Fields, let him pass, let him do this, to the transition of what they're now doing, which is very akin to what the Ravens are doing with Lamar Jackson. Even like some of the change up in play calls to where they put Cole Kmet under center for a QB sneak, which makes a ton of sense when you factor in 6'5" and 260, 255, whatever he is, just to go get 1 yard, 1.5 yards. So, I mean, obviously we're going to get into more throughout the show, but it's a very exciting time to be a Bears fan because, and not just my lifetime, but the lifetimes of many others, Jay Cutler is the best we've ever seen wear a Bears uniform and a quarterback, right?
Blech.
So
nothing against Jay. It's just like the fact that is your top echelon is
that's your baseline. That's your baseline of good quarterback play. Yeah. I mean, for God's sake, Eric Kramer still owns the single season passing record, and that was like 3,800 and some odd yards. Like, there's not even a 4,000-yard passer in this franchise's history.
And Mitch Trubisky is, has the team leader in passer rating.
Yeah, which, woo, I guess.
So one housekeeping tidbit before we get going. Tune in tonight on Second City Gridiron. There's going to be another Bare Bones episode that's actually going to come out at 9 on the YouTube channel, and then sometime this weekend pop up for your podcasting pleasure. It was an interview that I got to do with Dr. Michael Risher. He is actually a chiropractor and works with Justin Fields on a weekly, if not daily basis. And so he got to give us a little insight into what that looks like, what they're working on, and how that's been translated to game. So it was a pretty fun interview, 45 minutes of deeper, medical performance stuff. And so, yeah, definitely check that out.
And then the fact you were able to get him on is super cool.
And actually, he was down to do some more, too. So look for him to pop on. Maybe we can get him on the regular show, too, and just keep talking about some of the other guys he works with, because he's worked in the past with Khalil Mack when he was here, Darnell Mooney consistently, Dave Montgomery consistently. He's worked with Josh Norman, back in his Buffalo Bills days. So he's a pretty big dude. Not literally big, he's a normal sized dude, but he's getting real big in the NFL community, especially, and really big in the bowling community, actually. So if you want bowling talk, we did that for about 2 minutes at the end there too. But Danny, before we get heavy into this, I have one question I've got to ask you. How would you define quarterback? Because I think for me, that's been floating around a lot, especially with what Justin did last week.
I mean, are you talking like the prototypical drop back passer, the way we think of like Peyton Manning and Phillip Rivers, that regard, or like how the new era of quarterback is start to come in with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields to that extent now, where it's running around. There's an athleticism to it.
If Merriam-Webster came to you and said, "We need the 2-sentence spiel on quarterback," and they're going to put your definition in there that everyone's going to look at and use going forward.
I think it's fluid. Like, it's some rendition thereof, like everything else. Like, because I'm a firm believer of true progression as a quarterback happens between the hash marks and being able to throw the ball and make decisions with your eyes and manipulate the safety and make corners guess and basically be a true quarterback. But like, it's a sliding scale. It's not the same as it ever was. Fran Tarkenton, for instance, was not a traditional drop back passer. He was Mad Fran, the guy who ran around and made things happen. Like, it's never a true definition. I just think people have this idea in their mind that, a quarterback has to be Tom Brady, or has to be Phillip Rivers, or has to be Peyton Manning, or has to be X, Y, or Z. And now that you're seeing something different because of the way offenses are played at levels other than the NFL, so the NCAA and high school, and even going into Pop Warner, it's really just give your best athlete the football as many times as you can. And because it's a drop back style football now versus hand the ball off, the best athlete has gone from being the running back to the quarterback. It's just a progression of how it is.
And the reason I asked is because, you have some individuals, and I would say most, very excited about what we saw on Sunday, just as I know you were. And then you have some individuals, like I believe there was a commentary by Sean McCoy, if that helps at all. I mean, who cares really what Sean McCoy says, but he dropped multiple times, no, he's a running back, or, oh wait, let me know when he throws the ball, and, ignoring the fact he threw 3 touchdowns. But if you go to Merriam-Webster, because I was curious, so I just looked it up while you were talking there, they define it as an offensive back in football who usually lines up behind the center, calls the signals, and directs the play of the team. It has nothing, even if you go by that definition, which obviously is its own thing, it has nothing to do with being specifically a Peyton Manning, Tom Brady-esque player. And again, as we are moving forward in this more modern day era, like you said, fluidity and that ever-changing definition of what we have needs to shift. And
at the end of the day,
you evolve or die. If you don't evolve, you die.
But like I said, at the end of the day, who cares? If it looks like Tom Brady or Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, or if they're effective, who cares? Oh, and then we got our regular tuner guy that tunes in, John Teltalia. Quarterback is someone who distributes the football to playmakers, including themselves. It's pretty spot on, easy definition, if you ask me.
I would say so. All right, well, let's get into the regular portion of the show. I just had to get that off my chest. It was bugging me all week, and I was curious what your thoughts were going to be. Knee-jerk reaction. What was yours for that last game?
That Justin Fields is special. I mean, that how can you come away with anything else? The guy set the single game rushing record in a season for quarterback rushing yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns, 2 of whom to the man who loves falling on the ground himself. And
I was wondering if I was going to come up this podcast.
And it was just one of those things, like, it finally felt like the coming out party we all were waiting for to happen. Like, it happened a little bit against the Cowboys, where it was like, see, this is what we've been talking about. And then last weekend was just against the Dolphins, where you're like, look at this. And then you had the awesome clip of Mike McDaniel, trying to quote unquote coach him on the sideline of stop that. Would you just stop that? And then he had the fun presser afterward of like, well, he kept scrambling and, he just doesn't listen to coaching or whatever he said to that effect. Like, it was fun. And it finally makes you feel like the answer isn't just a hypothetical, that the answer is truly the answer. You're no longer guessing between A, B, C, and D on your multiple choice test, right? This is now you've studied and B is the answer. So that's what I left.
And what you said, like, so one of mine later connects more to that. So I'll dive into that when we get a little further in. My knee-jerk reaction was thinking you were going to go that route. This defense isn't good. It's just bad. And that's fine for now. I mean, it's funny because, we as Bears fans have usually been on the other side of it, where the defense is like, bear down, monsters of the midway, all that jazz. And the offense has been horrendous, and even coming away with wins or close losses. But it's also so different because I've never really been on this side where the offense is really fun and exciting and you're glued to the TV, and the defense is horrendous. And it's like, I don't really care that much. It's fine. I mean, especially looking forward, putting my GM hat on, I would think it's going to be easier to construct a defense that will not lose you a game, whether that's with draft, whether that's
especially because like, kind of to your point, you kind of see even like with the second half adjustments, a majority of Miami's points were scored in the first half again. Yes. And it wasn't for them pulling the dogs off. That's coaching. Again, they adjust at halftime. They make life harder. Are they talented? No. Is Jack Sanborn running in mud or concrete at all points of his life? Yes, he is, but they still try. It's not like they're out there with talented players getting burned. They're out there with under-talented players just kind of getting beat up by the best receiving duo in the league. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I believe, set the record for most receiving yards last week through 9 weeks of the season, or 9 games played of the season, of any duo in NFL history. Like, it's not like they were playing bums. They're playing the best duo in the league, who also happen to be probably the first and second fastest receivers in the league, against an undermanned defense that had two of its most effective defensive players traded away. So it is what it is, man. Like, you got to take it for what it is based off talent.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, there's a lot of holes in this defense. I expect a very different front seven going into next year, and I expect a lot of overs. So I pick a lot of overs going forward when you're looking at Bears matchups, especially when you look at some of the other teams that are playing, as they also don't have great defenses, as we'll see when we get deeper into this matchup. But that'll lead us to our next category, to be perfectly honest. And my brutally honest takeaway from this game was that Justin Fields is him. Justin Fields is Timothy. It's kind of crazy when you look at some of these things. According to True Media, Dolphins blitzed a season high 56.4% of dropbacks, yet he still produced. According to Next Gen Stats, take this with a grain of salt, as you should with all stats. All 3 of Justin Fields' passing touchdowns came against the blitz. If you look at this, actually, from our good friends, Quentin over at Buckus Stats, throwing this up there. Basically, what this is showing is that Justin Fields now has the 3rd highest first down rate amongst all qualifying QBs, behind only Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. That's some pretty, when you look at specifically also QB usage, that's some pretty good group that you're hanging out with that in consideration.
Well,
and then lastly,
when you're hanging out with,
look at over the first 19 starts between, let's use Josh, because for me the comp's always been Josh Allen. So when you look at that, comparing Fields and Allen, over the first 19 career starts, Allen had 56.8 completion percentage. Justin Fields at 59%. Allen was at 20 touchdowns, 19 receptions. Justin Fields at 17 and 15. Pass rating for Allen, 74.9, 79.4 for Justin. And rushing yards for Allen, 852, 988 for Justin. That's pretty darn good when you really look at it.
Mm-hmm. It's a trajectory and a trend that you'd like to see, especially given the still really dearth of offensive talent that's on the roster. The line isn't magically better. The receivers have gotten better, but I would argue, especially in his debut, Claypool left some, if not more, to be desired. I mean, it's a work in progress, but I think the growth from Getsy as a play caller, more importantly, the growth of Justin Fields as a football player is there, and it's worth commending.
Before we get to your perfectly honest, out of curiosity, but you brought up Claypool, what would your letter grade be for him for that last game?
C+.
Why?
It's a small sample size, but some of the issues that were consistent in Pittsburgh of spotty hands kind of arose. He had an easy little bubble screen where he had 6 if he just catches the football based on how he runs after the catch. And it's not me being overly critical. It's me calling a spade a spade. He had these issues before. He only catches 56 or so % of all targets that go his way. This isn't a new issue. This is something that just he does. Claypool is going to be a good football player. He already is a good football player. But my issue is always going to come back to, as I spoke about last week, when you're giving up a top 40 pick, you can't drop a bubble screen that's designed to go to you. In fact, I think they were being nice because I thought I had counted 3 when in fact they had counted 2 by actual statistics of drop passes. The two I'm guessing they were both, were screens. I believe one went to the left side of the formation, one went to the right side of the formation. And it's just like, those are gimmies that you have to catch the football.
I'm right. I'm not too far from you. I mean, I was thinking a B for him because you're absolutely right. Like that gimme, that bubble screen you got to catch that. You 100%.
There's no excuse for it, Mason. You just gotta.
But when you look at the reason I'm not going to the C route though is because when you go to the next play and he then catches it and then is able to plow his way and then get a first down, shake it off and move on to the next play. Things like that's where I start to give the wiggle room, with some of the execution issues, because there were some of the routes seems not exactly where they 100% should be, being a short week, right? Coming off a trade, all those things, drawing that the pass interference that was called early in the game and then should have drawn the second one later in the game. Mm-hmm. I'm settling in that B minus area for that. And you're absolutely right. He needs to catch those passes. The hope is there is a different culture here in Chicago, that he joins the Mooney mindset, the Justin mindset in terms of the extra work. He's on the jugs machine, all those things that honestly, from what I understand, was not happening in Pittsburgh. But if he doesn't do that, then you're a C player. If he doesn't do those things, that's
right. And I'm not trying, like I said, I'm not trying to be overly harsh. I just think 6 points is greater than 10 yards, right?
Yeah.
So sure, he got the first down the following play on that tunnel or the bubble screen rather, but you need to catch that football. And it's easy to say in hindsight, and it sucks to say like, oh, well, he still made a play the next play. It's one of those things like I keep seeing like the 40th overall pick flash in my head. Like, and I'm not saying that there's a player in the top 40 that's going to be as good or better than Chase Claypool. What I'm saying is, I'm not looking at it as just 40 for Chase Claypool. I'm looking at it as 40 for Chase Claypool and $20 million a year. Because that's what he's going to get.
And that's a fair point. I always struggle, at least this is just me personally, how much I want to analyze specifically game by game how that player's doing.
Sure.
And then comparing that to, like you're saying, like the cost it was to get that player. Right, because there is a truth to it. A 6th-round pick, let's say you drafted some rookie, a 6th-round production should be different than a 2nd-round production. It just it is what it is. It's hard not to put that little extra on it. But at the same time, it's like, how much should you look at it as within a vacuum, isolated, like within the context of this game and what he can.
And that's fair.
And that's always where I struggle.
Yeah, and that's fair because he's eventually it might even be this weekend against the Lions. He's going to start outsnapping Equinemi at St. Brown. It's just going to happen.
Oh, the game against his brother? That's going to be so sad.
The Sun God?
Yeah, those are cool names. I don't care. I mean, you have to be a football player to have those names, but they're cool names.
They are cool. I would agree with you there.
I'm sorry. You can't be an accountant and be Amon-Ra St. Brown. It just doesn't work.
You can't have the nickname Sun God?
No, you can't. Sorry. I digress. Back to you, to be perfectly honest.
I guess if we're being like just on the surface, I kind of made a joke about it earlier, but just they're going to need 8 defensive starters next year.
Oh God, yes.
Like I made the joke about Sanborn and how he's running in concrete or mud or whatever, and that's fine, but I can make an argument that outside of really Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker, and Eddie Jackson, so 3/4 of your secondary, like that you might need 8 new whole starters depending on how you view Kyler Gordon.
So how do you view Kyler Gordon, especially in the last, not comparing first 3 weeks to pre-last?
So I'll feel better if they just keep him as pure nickel. That's how I had him evaluated on Washington, but he's still got to prove that he can do that.
Yes, he is you still need to get a lot more homework done on him. And like, that's a good thing, right? This is only week 10. We got a lot of time ahead of us. I would at least I'm happier with what we've seen more recently, but they've also haven't played amazing all. I don't know if you can say that. Kyler Gordon wasn't getting heavily picked on.
Okay, so maybe I should digress and say 7 because I think Kindle Vildor is painfully still Kindle Vildor and has been since the Dallas game.
He's also painfully has a busted ankle.
Yes, he does.
What about
and
Justin
I
Jones?
actually,
What do you think about Justin Jones?
that was the one I was going to add. If you want to make it 7, so.
Yeah.
Justin Jones, I think, has been impressive, especially because I've heard nothing more than, especially when he came from Chargerland, that he leaves a lot to be desired on the, like, he leaves meat on the bone when he's on the field, and it's hard to, it's truly hard to evaluate him when arguably your second best defensive lineman this year has been Watts, right? So it's like, where does he begin to not be good, and where do his deficiencies just become part of the fact that the rest of the defensive line is not good?
I think you're right. I'm going to be very interested and hope to see what happens when, like Mooney, right? I think Mooney's going to be better the second half of the year because he's next to Chase Claypool, who's going to take at least some attention. So I would hope to see, well, what is Justin Jones going to be when you bring in whatever 3-tech or whoever else you're going to bring in, like DeForest Buckner, maybe they'll trade be up for the Colts. That'd be fantastic. To bring in someone else and he can just do his thing more. But yeah, as of right now, he's been fine.
Fine. Yeah.
Next section. What do you find? We found this either humorous, something that from either the previous week or going into this week that just made us chuckle a bit.
I'll let you lead this one off, Mason, because I'm curious what you have to say.
Okay. I went with the fact that Tevin Jenkins went from being almost traded and being bashed for his work ethic and mentality to arguably being one of, if not the best current Bears offensive lineman. According to PFF_Brad Spielberger, with PFF, obviously, he tweeted out that the highest graded guards over the last 3 months were number 1, Browns guard Joel Bitonio, who was very good, Patriots right guard Michael Onwenu, and then I'm so bad at pronunciation of names. If there's anything, if there was like a way that you could fade my name pronunciation in like a betting format, I would be right up there. And then number 3 is Tevin Jenkins. Against the Dolphins, Jenkins only surrendered 2 pressures on 43 pass blocking snaps. So I just look back and think it's funny how he was just written off. Honestly, even as far as back as last year. So
sure. The thing I found humorous, Cole Kmet is kind of my personal punching bag in terms of like when I speak about him. And one of my big issues has always been that he can't turn, and unless he has a head of steam built up, he doesn't really, use his big body to mow people over or anything like that. And he had 2 of them. He had the little end around where he actually was able to flip his hips and get upfield a little bit. It wasn't a massive game, but I think, what did he get, like 7 yards out of it? So I just found it humorous that he actually turned. And then he had his one bulldozer moment, I guess we'll call it, where it's, some poor Miami defensive back was in his way, and he went right over top of him and just kind of buried him in the dirt. So credit to Cole Kmet along with that. It was just humorous that all the things that I had issue with, he didn't just fall over after catching the football or have to continue in the straight line. He was actually able to veer off and up.
And I know this wasn't something you said, but I know something that others have talked about when it comes to kind of the Kmet bashing is his production. And at least I've always kind of been a Kmet defender to an extent when it comes to his receptions have always been up there in terms of tight end production. It just was red zone stuff. But part of that is also the Bears have been terrible in the red zone. They never even got there. Lo and behold, you get to the red zone, and look at that. He has 3 touchdowns over 2 games. So go figure.
Yeah. Like I said, humorous, but you take your victories where you can. And Cole Kmet wasn't just serviceable this game. He was good. He was a good football player this past weekend.
So speaking of that cornerback that got run over by the bulldozer, he probably suffering from a little bit of a headache after that. Our concussed corner, Danny, what do you got?
Mine was Khalil Herbert on the special teams play, where the punt got blocked and returned for a touchdown.
Oh gosh.
Because normally the issue with Khalil Herbert is his pass protection. Well, you kind of still got to block people on a free run to the punter. And he kind of did. It looked like he overstepped, anticipating him to go a different way and just kind of gave him the free lane. But, that was my questionable decision of Khalil Herbert. What you doing, bruh?
and that was probably something that was showing up on film, I would guess, right? You know, you're the Dolphins special teams coach,
Right.
and you're like, oh, we can take advantage of that. And I had the exact same thought you did when that happened. I was like, he's not a great pass blocker. I mean, the team literally averages less yards per play when he's in there on passing downs. Like for part of that reason, why do you have him back there? And then you think about how multifaceted that position has to be. He's great at covering kicks, right? But you're not going to have him as a gunner, and it sucks. I mean, at the end of the day, just he has to be better at that. You're a professional football player. You got to be able to make that block.
I agree. And it's not even just make the block, just get in his way.
Yeah, like how long does it take? What is the average snap to punt?
I don't know. Like, off the top of my head, I don't have that in front of me. But
2, 3 seconds, something like that. Like, just be a roadblock at least. Just trip them.
Yeah,
just get in the way.
Be the corner to Cole Kmet. Just get run over.
and that's rough. It's really rough.
Be a mild impediment. That's all I ask.
My concussed corner, and so forgive me for this soapbox I'm about to go on because it's something you last got into. So, this tweet went out earlier this week, and it basically saying from Alex Shapiro, NBC Sports, Bears had heard back from the league on a few plays they sent into the Dolphins game. According to the team source, the league says officials missed on 2 big penalties. Go figure. I added the go figure, by the way. DPI against Eddie Jackson should not have been called. Duh. And the DPI should have been called on Chase Claypool. Not like those 2 affected the game at all. Now, I'm never someone that's going to root for losses. I'm also someone that has, and I'm also usually not someone that blames refs, but those are egregious calls. Having challengeable pass interference did not go well when the NFL tried it before, but in my opinion, they never really gave it a chance. I think they brought it in there because it was so bad in that Saints-Rams playoff game, I believe it was, that they were like, oh, we need to make a showing of this. And then when they had it in that for the year, they almost didn't overturn any of them because they didn't want the refs, in my opinion, to look human, to be able to look like they were fallible. And so they were like, oh, all right, well, we never really overturned any of these. We should just get rid of them because it slows the game down and either make it reviewable or at least maybe in the last couple minutes of the game, make that reviewable so you're not doing it too many times. And I'm a big advocate. I think it was the XFL, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they brought in the Sky Judge. And there was literally just someone sitting up in the box who was like, look, that was absolutely not a hold. Or, hey, look, that was absolutely pass interference. They're still a referee, and they can still make that call. And they'll literally have all the views that are sitting there that we get at home. Because if you look at the All-22, yes, it was a little hard to see.
You can even do what the NHL does, where they have a literal just headquarters of other officials watching. And just they buzz in like, hey, listen, you missed this call.
Look, we live in a day and age where before the game and the broadcast at Gillette Stadium, they had a giant razor being projected onto the field that you could see from the TV. I don't know if you saw that. That was stupid. It was a couple days ago.
I caught that earlier in the game, in the Patriots game, yeah.
Ridiculous, but you can't get that call right. You can't, why not? Admit that you're a human being.
I mean, the other part of it that will always bug me, Mason, is they don't have strict and sound terminology and regulation for what a pass interference is. A lot of it is a ref's judgment call.
Yes. And
it's that you can't, how are you supposed to say the call is wrong then? It's like the fumble thing from a couple of years ago. Well, or the not the fumble thing, I'm sorry, the catch thing, where it's they didn't know what a catch was. Where, Cowboys fans will hate me, but the Des Bryant catch, that wasn't a catch. Because the ground caused the incompletion.
Because it's too athletic and too good of a receiver, so therefore that couldn't possibly be a catch, essentially.
Yeah, he can't physically come up with that possession because gravity says no.
The Megatron Lions one against the Bears.
The Megatron Lions one against the Bears, where he literally lands on his butt in the end zone, and because he slams the ball down to his offside to stand up and drops the football, it's no longer a touchdown. Okay.
The rule essentially, it should be, for these things, if it looks like a pass interference, it's a pass interference. That's essentially what it is. It's common sense.
What are you saying, Chase Claypool, and I don't remember who the corner was. It might have been Xavier Howard, but who wrapped him up around the waist. You don't think them looking like Jack and Rose in the Titanic is pass interference?
Oh, no, obviously not. And then when you slightly breathe right on. I think was it Jalen Waddle, and like he jumps into you when he's going for the ball. That's obviously on Eddie Jackson.
DeMar DeRozan is upset with you, sir.
I only want it to work though for my teams. Don't talk about it.
Yeah, don't talk about that otherwise. The other part that I was going to bring up was in terms of the soapbox. My defensive pass interference soapbox will always be the underthrown football where the receiver runs into the corner.
Yes.
Like, tell your quarterback to get a better arm. That's like that will always irk me because there was one. What was it where Jalen Waddle ran into Jalen Johnson, and it was just like, hey, defensive pass interference because Tua Tagovailoa literally just does not have the arm strength to put it where the ball needs to go. Like,
right. Otherwise, why don't we just teach our quarterbacks to just constantly throw behind where the defender is, have the offensive player go back into it constantly?
No kidding. That's what I would do if I were an or a quarterbacks coach. Like, hey, if you don't think the pass is there, severely underthrow it to the point where your receiver's just going to run right into the defensive back because it's an inefficiency because they're so hell bent on making this an offensive league that you can literally just run into a corner who can't turn his head around because the ball is underthrown. Like that that specific
right. You're absolutely right.
Specific portion of that penalty will always irk me because there's nothing the defender can do in that sense.
Well, and we can talk about this forever, but we need to move on to our.
We could. Let's move right along now.
Because I could literally just talk about that for days. So jaw dropping stat, really quick, super simple. Time to throw for Justin Fields. People constantly talking about how he's the slowest in the league, and he has been. But last week, the fastest time to throw was Tom Brady at 2.26 seconds. Ranked fourth fastest was Justin Fields at 2.37 seconds. So partially the offense, partially getting him moving, all receivers getting a little more open, I think, with the presence of someone like a Chase Claypool did in fact help. Things are starting to shift a bit where he's not just sitting.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So my jaw-dropping stat is kind of two-pronged. One is going to be the fact that, I already kind of brought up the first one I was going to use just because I was on a rant earlier, but the Dolphins receiving tandem setting a NFL record through 10 weeks of football being played for most receiving yards of a duo is absolutely absurd for a quarterback who I don't think is anything more than fine. He's a good, fine quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, but I just wonder, like, it's hard to not play the what if game. Like, what if Justin Fields had that kind of dynamic receiving duo in front of him to play football with?
He'd score 100
kind of thing. 100. Yeah,
100 points.
And then the other one was, I believe, Next Gen Stats had 2 separate runs of Justin Fields this past weekend at 20 plus miles per hour. That boy is not just moving; he is moving. He's going so fast.
Book it. Book this. Right, pin this timestamp, whatever. Sometime this year, he's going to break 22 miles per hour. It's gonna happen.
That is so fast. Though.
It's just
like,
a matter.
But he's not. It doesn't look like he's running that hard. Like when Kyler Murray breaks out and he is like top speed, he looks like he is running so very hard. Like when Justin Fields breaks pocket and gets loose, it's like he's gliding. Yeah, it's like a glide. It's awesome.
It's beautiful to watch, and it's again, it's nothing else I can say about it, but besides effortless. And actually, with that in mind, why don't we just take a quick look at it? Throw it up here on the screen.
Sure.
Break tackles and he's off to the races. Oh, he got a terrific block down there by Mooney.
Like, it's just ridiculous.
He's so fast. And then when the Bears Twitter account tweeted out the video of you seeing it from the end zone view of the opposing end zone view, and you see like he's got both hands on the ball at almost all points, and his eyes are staying downfield. right?
Oh,
Snap
And
is back, looking to throw. Fields jumps up in the pocket. Now he's going to have to keep it himself. He runs, he gets the first down to midfield. Away at the 40. Fields to the 30, to the 20. Can he beat the angle? He does. He finishes in the end zone. Touchdown. 61-yard. A Sunday stroll for just.
you mean that?
yeah, like, and then like I'm sure you have a more medical scientific term for it, but like the proprioception of just understanding where everyone is at and feeling almost where everyone is at around you, to just be able to like flip your hips, turn, look downfield like you're going to pass, get them to bite on the fake, and then just take off again without really ever breaking stride or hesitating in any way, shape, or form. That's a very special like version of athlete. That is very hard to do.
And Dr. Michael Risher and I, we talked about that today. We actually went over that play for about 5-10 minutes. So, and some of the training that him and Justin have been doing to specifically work on what Danny talked about there, the proprioception, his ability to, there's that little mechanism you have, right, where it's like the eye, head, and how that reacts to the rest of your body, how they're working on that, the thoracic rotation. So again, check that video out. It's going to go live tonight at 9 p.m. for a little deeper dive. But Danny's absolutely right. Just the what he needs to do to accomplish all facets of that play. There are so few individuals in the league, anywhere, but let alone the league, that can do that.
Right. And this isn't just like, oh, that's a football thing. That's like, that is all athletes on the face of the earth kind of thing. That is hard to do what he did, and he never even breaks stride. It's wild.
Oh, I just love Justin. All right, moving on to our training room roundup. Again, that's another thing I could just talk about, like stuff like that for the rest of the stream. We're gonna look here what we have to for the Bears and the Lions. Bears, there's a couple things that popped up here. You know, Jalen Johnson had something similar where he popped up with a limited participation at the end of a week and then didn't play for a couple weeks. Today it's an oblique for him. The hope is that we'll see what Friday holds. So you'll have to pop in and we'll have a little conversation along with Lester Wilfong regarding where he's at on Friday. Tevin Jenkins also popping up with a hip. Between the two, I would be more concerned about Jalen Johnson than Tevin Jenkins. Hip, a little easier to play through. Oblique, I mean, that core stuff, Danny, I don't know if you've ever dealt with that with either any of your training or any of that aspect, but anything you're doing with that core, that's something you want to be worried about.
I've had a strained oblique before, and that was not fun.
It's everything you do, right? I mean, it's coughing, it's sneezing, it's talking, it's laughing.
It's even just like if you have to turn to like get a cup of water that's off to your side, it's like it's just tense and tight, and it's no matter what you do, at the very least, it's mild discomfort. Just like, this sucks. Nothing about this is fun.
So yeah, that's why we're both concerned about where Jalen Johnson might be. Keep an eye on that. Al-Qadim Muhammad, don't know much about it, but 2 DNPs in a row for him. Same thing with Kindle Vildor. I mean, I love that Kindle Vildor play that happened there, the way he went down. I was thinking high ankle sprain when I first saw that, but the fact that they haven't put him on IR yet, maybe it's not actually that, or at least not a severe one, maybe more of a grade 1. Having Al-Qadim Muhammad out, how concerned would you be about that?
It's not like the run defense is great, but it would make me a little concerned because he is probably their best run defender, not named Watts on the defensive line. Like I know he's a very easy punching bag because he's the paid guy in the line now at this point that isn't named Justin Jones. But he is a steadying, like he contains, he doesn't he's just not a sexy defensive end, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Like you said, he's good in run defense. He just, because he's got the defensive end position on him, he's not getting sacks, he's not getting pressures, and that's what everyone thinks of when you think about that position.
Yeah.
So, and Kindle Vildor, if he doesn't play, honestly, I'm fine seeing. I'd rather, if anything, see what some of the other guys can do. Like, is it Jalen Jones?
Jalen Jones.
Interesting little corner there. What can he do? I think Kindle Vildor is a great guy. He had some really good spurts at the beginning of this year. He's just, when the Bears are playing for the playoffs, let's say next year or the year after that, whatever the case may be, I don't think Kindle Vildor is your cornerback or your nickel.
Correct.
Moving on to the Lions. There's a lot to go through here, so we're not going to do that. We're going to look at the ones that are like the biggest ones. One being Josh Reynolds, right? I mean, he is one of their main receivers, not named Sun God. So taking away another passing option for Jared Goff would be a big deal.
Looking at it, Kirby Joseph.
Kirby Joseph would be another one. Mm-hmm.
Who had the all-time greatest Instagram tagline on a post of all time. He's just been farting. He ain't been shitting on anyone yet.
So good. I absolutely love that.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Kirby.
A couple of people that stand out, really just two more that I would say are like the biggest ones. Malcolm Rodriguez. He's actually been solid for them as a rookie linebacker. He's someone that I know I mocked the Bears as like a late linebacker option. He gets a lot of tackles.
I said it when the Detroit Lions drafted him, and I'll say it again. They got a starting linebacker for a very long time in Detroit, in Malcolm Rodriguez. That dude just understands football geometry.
Right place, right time. And he is athletic, right? He's not sandborn. He's not running in concrete. And then lastly, DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is the next. Frank Ragnow obviously is important, but he was a full participant. I'm not going to worry about him. DeAndre Swift, he's been interesting. I don't know how much you're keeping up with Lions specifically stuff, but right, he had the injuries, Danny, and then he came back, and then one of the coaches, it might have even been Campbell, said we probably gave him too much on his plate when he came back. Like I have Jamal Williams on my fantasy team, and I'm loving it because Swift is not really doing much. So Williams is doing.
Swift is one of the better running backs in football for my money at this point. Because he can do a little bit of everything, but I think that's the issue you're seeing right here. He's a smaller back. He's going to just run into these issues when large 220-plus pound men are just running into him at all points of his career. Like he's a talented football player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
tough to stay on the field. I mean, look at the other guys that fall in those categories. I mean, running backs in general is hard, but I mean, Christian McCaffrey, he's just constantly beat up. All of the 49ers running backs are always hurt, and because they always get like the smaller, speedy guys. I mean, they're just not stout.
Question, Mason. Is it out of the realm of possibility where David Montgomery can start donating his blood and they do platelet spinning for all these other running backs and inject his blood into them? Is that how
it is not out of the realm of possibility. I just don't want to give it away because that's a Bears thing, and I want to keep that close.
You got to keep Wolverine on the Bears.
Yeah, at least until he retires as not a Bear, probably. All right, well, we're gonna take a short break. While we're doing that, why don't you enjoy Justin running the ball one more time?
The back at the left tackle, time for Fields now. Accelerating at the first down.
And break tackles, and he's off to the races. Oh, he got a terrific block down there by Mooney.
And
so
we
awesome.
are back. Yeah, what a good thing to come back to, right? Just
so awesome.
It's elegant. We are going to move on to looking ahead at this matchup specifically between the Lions and the Bears. The Chicago Bears have led the series 104 wins, 75 losses, 5 ties, and they've won 4 of the last 5. Something to keep in mind with this, the Bears have scored on 53.1% of their drives over the past 3 weeks, the highest rate in the league. Over the opening 6 weeks, Chicago scored only 32.3% of the possessions, which was 21st in the league. So you can see how much progression that is. Compare that to the Lions. 44.6% of the drives against the Lions reach the red zone or score prior, the highest rate in the league. So, not exactly fantastic if you are a Lions fan. But now that means that we can look at our love it, hate it, rehabilitate it, some of the matchups that we're excited about, the ones we're not at all, and the ones that we would fix. Danny, what do you love?
I love Justin Fields against this defense. They should, in theory, have a field day against them or a Fields day.
There it is.
And I would like to say that we're going to probably see Darnell Mooney have another game. I think it was kind of evident even last week, despite my C grade on Chase Claypool, that just his very presence out there when he was out there with Darnell Mooney made his life just easier by the fact that he existed out there. It's another body you have to account for that isn't just out there for blocking purposes, like Equinemius St. Brown. Who Equinemius, I think, for being who he is, was fine. He is a fine football player. He's a good wide receiver 5.
4, 5. Oh, I was going to say 4 just to be nice.
4,
yeah, 5.
4, 5, whatever. Let's say 4 or 5 for argument's sake. And he is being thrust into, for the better part of this year to this point, as wide receiver 2 and playing very meaningful amounts of snaps. At the end of the day, at a certain point, it's not Equanimeous St. Brown's fault that he's still Equanimeous St. Brown, right? That he just physically can't do things at the NFL level that other guys can. He's still a fantastic football player by measure of the normal person. But by measure of other wide receivers in the NFL who start, he is not that good. I think Claypool just makes Mooney's life easier. And I think I love the matchup of Mooney playing against this Detroit secondary, especially with Claypool still learning the playbook and still getting involved with Justin, that I think we could see a good Mooney day of maybe 100-plus reception yards and maybe even more than one touchdown because he finally found the end zone again this past week.
That would be fantastic because I drafted Mooney in multiple fantasy leagues and dropped him already in a bunch. So the few that I'm hanging on to him in, I would like to be able to play him.
How many leagues are you in?
5.
That's too many.
Last year I was in 8, so I've already parsed it down.
That's way too many.
One thing I did forget to mention earlier, going back to some of the injury stuff, actually Jake Tongs was waived today, tight end for the Bears.
Yep,
and
Jake
the thought
Tongs
process, it's potentially to make room for Byron Pringle. Byron Pringle is coming off of the calf injury.
So that is actually, to me, a pretty big thing because that means your wide receivers 1 through 3 are now all representative NFL starting wide receivers in Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool and now Byron Pringle, all of whom block better, if not more so than average in the league, and gives Justin more targets to throw to. And
more people open, more separation.
Yeah. And I will also tell you, I was Dante Pettis fanboy the year he came out. I might have had him as high as wide receiver 2. I'm not going to divulge that because I'm going to make myself really look bad. That's why I'm saying the word maybe in front of it. But Dante Pettis is tired of seeing Dante Pettis play football. That's what I'll say, which means Mason is tired of seeing him. I'm tired of seeing him. Get real wide receivers out there. Byron Pringle is a better football player than Dante Pettis. Play Byron Pringle. He probably should have been ready to
do. When you saw Byron Pringle do well, look, that was back with the Chiefs, right? And that was if you had he had Juju. Well, not Juju. Just right. We had Tyreek Hill, which obviously not those saying that, but if wide receiver 3, like you're talking about, and all the attention's on him, he has to produce like a wide receiver 1. That's when he gets those open routes underneath, and that's when he can use some of the speed that he does have, and that's where he can be effective.
Yeah, and this is where you realize like you probably have too much time on your hands to rewatch football film. I take a sick grace in the physicality of certain players. The Bears receiving core at this moment in time between St. Brown and Byron Pringle, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, N'Keal Harry, they are all demons in the blocking game. They love getting hats on people and helping spring runs. That is a lot of fun for me to watch because they're not just getting in front of you like, oh, just be a little bit of a speed bump. They're putting their body on you and they're staying on you and making life difficult to go get free. That's why this running game, despite everything up front being suspect at best, aside from Tevin Jenkins, is doing so well. Because once they get to the second and third levels, they've got receivers getting downfield and helping open up the rest of the running game for them. Hell, even on the 61-yard run, what did you see? You saw Darnell Mooney slow down and just get on it. Just get on the defensive back's chest and help spring him forward. And it's a good block. It's a good, smart block. Right.
We've seen that before where some of the receivers don't know what to do when they're downfield and they get a block in the back or a hold, and then they'll Justin scramble or whoever else has the ball gets called back.
Shout out to Amir Smith-Marset.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to go down that road. All right, my love is same thing as you, actually. Bears offense against this Detroit defense. This information actually I got from Jonathan Wood. You should give him a follow, Jonathan_Wood1. He does some great stats and collecting of things so that people like me don't have to, and I can just use it. Justin Fields last played Detroit in the second start of his career. He was 11 for 17 for 209 yards, 12.3 yards per attempt, and had 5 explosive pass plays that gained at least 20 yards. That is the 8th highest yards per attempt mark in the NFL in an NFL game since Fields' career started. When you look at Detroit's passing defense, they're last in yards per attempt allowed, last in air yards per pass, 9th worst in completion percentage allowed, 8th worst in pressure rating. They're 2nd worst in expected points added. They're 8th worst in explosive passes allowed. And also, the Lions have forced a punt on just 25.3% of opponent possessions, the lowest rate in the league. Give me this all day long. I mean, this is, we talked about last year being a breakout. This is should be the kick the door in, explosion, nuke, whatever performance that Justin has through the air, not just through on the ground. And take all that whole he's a running back stuff out your mouth.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'll just keep going onto my hate. There's not as much to hate in this game, which is rare to say when it comes to Bears games this year, but it's Lions running backs versus the Bears linebackers. Jamal Williams has 126 rushes for 545 yards and 8 touchdowns, along with 9 receptions. And DeAndre Swift, as we talked about, hasn't played a lot. He's only played in 5 games, 3 where he started. So he only has 247 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, but has 16 receptions and 2 receiving touchdowns. You pair that with Jack Sanborn, who, again, is functional, and that's kind of where he is. You pair that with Morrow, who's very athletic, but hasn't always been in the right place at the right time. Then that's where some of that concern may occur for me.
Sure. So my hate it was the exact same as yours, so I'll just move on to rehabilitate it. And my rehabilitate it was going to be the defense in and of itself as a whole, not just against the running game. And early on, the Detroit offense was, I believe, through a quarter of the season, was leading the league in big play, in like explosive play percentage and in total explosive plays. As of, I believe, the last 3 weeks, they have not scored more than 15 points. Jared Goff has regressed to become, again, Jared Goff, and with a very painfully average to below average quarterback who isn't all that great. And you now subtract TJ Hawkinson from that offense, who they traded to in division rival the Minnesota Vikings, and a lack of, as you pointed out, DeAndre Swift. And this could be almost like a somewhat get-right game for the defense where, yeah, you're still going to allow points, but maybe you can kind of use it as like a confidence builder. Because I pointed out last week, Mason, rehab is not just starting from scratch and doing it anew. It's a trend. It's a process. So maybe this is the start for them of trying to turn the defense around. Are they going to be good this year? No, the defense is not going to be good. They weren't good when they had their all-pro linebacker. They weren't good when they had their all-time single-season sack leader this year. But this could be almost like a confidence-building game to where Allen Williams and Matt Eberflus find some things that the defense does well, and they can build upon that and continue the trend into the offseason and into next year and on in future games. So that's me, the rehabilitated of, especially when you only, outside of Jamal Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who does this offense offer against you that you're like, really like, ooh, scary? Especially now with Hawkinson gone.
I didn't understand that move, especially because what they got back, they just basically swapped picks, I think, or something. Like, it was a weird trade.
I mean, the prevailing knowledge is he's got a degenerative ankle, but I mean, Hawkinson's still a more than functional to good tight end.
What is he? I mean, arguably, without looking at it, it's still a top 5 tight end?
Top 5 to 7 I think at worst.
And you couldn't, and especially a pass catching one, you couldn't just straight up get a 4th for him? You had to flip picks?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it's them actively tanking just to make sure they get a top 3 pick. I have no idea.
It's nuts. My rehabilitate is yours. Like you're saying, is a process. Mine's straight up. You're starting from like a shattered femur, so you're right at the beginning, and there's such a long road ahead. It's the pressure that the Bears generate or lack thereof. Like last week against the Dolphins, they had 0 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, only 3 quarterback hits. Going into last week, the Bears were 28th in the league in pressure rating at 27%. They just stretch, and like we talked about earlier, Justin Jones is fine. but that's about it. He's fine, and that's really what you have in the front. Travis Gibson started off a little hot, at least I thought he did, and he's just fallen off. So you got it. I would like to see some maybe more creativeness to generate some pressures. They've done that a little bit. Jaquan Brisker, does he still lead the league? Not the league, sorry, the team in sacks?
I think he's second. I think.
But your safety really shouldn't be second, right? I mean, that's the thing. It just shouldn't.
No, I agree.
Moving on. X Factor for the Bears. We're going to run through these a little quicker. Mine's just, that's still that one. X Factor for Bears. Mine's going to be wide receivers. We talked about a couple of plays that were kind of left on the field when it came to helping out Justin, whether it was Chase Claypool's drop on that little bubble screen, whether it was Equanimeous St. Brown's drop on fourth down to end the game. Just help your quarterback out when you can on those obvious ones. It's high school stuff. Secure the ball, run your route right, run the right depth. That if the Bears receivers can step up, you're going to have a big game.
Yeah, my X factor is actually going to be Fields himself because I really don't think much of the offense as a whole. I think the play calling is getting better. I think Justin is getting better, but I just don't think, like, you go back and watch, the offensive line just isn't good. The receivers still leave a lot of meat on the bone. Look at Equanimeous St. Brown following this should have been pass interference. He dropped a sure 4th and 9 completion where that ball hit EQ in the hands. Catch the football. So it's going to come down to Justin. And I believe kind of to the X factor point that no team is allowing more rushing yards a game to the quarterback position than the Detroit Lions.
So it should be really fun. What's your X factor for the Lions? What would they have to do?
The running game itself, that offensive line when healthy is one of the better ones in the league. It just sucks for them that the receivers outside of Amon-Ra leave a lot to be desired, and Jared Goff is due to trash butter or average, somewhere in between doo-doo, garbage, and average, depending on the day.
That's a pretty apt assessment, yes.
And the running game, especially given how bad the linebackers are right now, could wreak a lot of havoc. So it's really the running backs in themselves to basically make the Bears' lives hard because Jamal Williams is a good NFL running back. Depending on how much tick DeAndre Swift gets, I think he's one of the better backs in the league. They could make their lives very hard, especially if DeAndre Swift is healthy, because then they can get him out in space and use him in the passing game as well.
My X factor for the Lions is containing Justin Fields for all of the reasons we said before in terms of why they're not need work. Said in terms of the Lions giving up pressure. They sure do contain Justin. They can't do that if they allow him to do what he did against them. Actually, what he's been doing over the last couple of weeks. They will 100. Who's your offensive player of the game?
You know what? I'm going to throw a curveball at you. It's going to be Chase Claypool.
You bastard! You stole mine.
Get pooped.
Why is it Chase Claypool? Now I'm upset. Go ahead. Why? Talk about.
It's going to be Chase
Claypool. You hate him with your C grade.
You never said I hate Chase Claypool.
No, I'm starting it right now. Trend hashtag Danny hates.
Danny hates Chase. I just think that they're going to get him involved. I think he's been putting in a lot of extra work. We saw the report come out that he was working with the offensive, coaching assistant or whatever, like the quality control coach, I believe is the technical term of the coach was that he was working with, and Justin on the side to really get caught up to speed. I think that you're going to see probably some of the concentration drop stop, and it's going to be more or less just he is their big play guy. He runs a lot of go routes, a lot of deep outs, a lot of post patterns, whatnot, and they're going to have the advantageous situation, I think, to take shots downfield. And I think he's inevitably going to come up with at least one of them.
I'm going to say all the above. Mine was also Chase Claypool. Like I said, you stole mine. I just think he opens things up I think there's a reason that Cole Kmet scored 2 touchdowns last week, besides just having presence in the red zone. There's a reason Darnell Mooney was able to get more involved last week. And sometimes it's just having a receiver, a legitimate receiver available on the other side of the formation. Defensive player of the game. I'm going to go with, we talked about him a lot, actually. I'm going to go with Justin Jones because he's one of the few people that does generate some pressure. He's one of the few, he's right there in the middle. he's really going to have to eat up a block or two in order for these linebackers to have some more clear lanes if they have a shot at stopping these running backs.
I'm going to go with Jaquan Brisker. The Bears linebackers are, how you say, not very good. The running backs should get to the second and third levels often. And Jaquan Brisker is a pretty sure tackler. I don't think you're going to see a ton of misdirection just because I don't think the Lions are really capable of doing so based on their offensive personnel of just being able to run Jared Goff around, run the boot, run the play action, et cetera, unlike the wide zone and the belly options and whatnot. So I think you're going to just be able to kind of let him be the old school hammer, as it were, and just fill the gap and be Bob Sanders and just do your job.
I like that. That's a really good call. And that will bring us to who is going to be our King of the North, a.k.a. our most valuable player. Danny, who you got?
I think it's going to be the Bears. I think the Bears are going to win, and I think your most valuable player is going to inevitably be Justin Fields. He's trending in all the right ways. It's hard to pick anyone else, and I think obviously the reason that Justin Fields has been a very common pick between the two of us since we started this show up is because he's really the only player that matters to the extent that he does on this team. He is the engine of the offense, and he's really the engine of the team itself because of how bad the defense is. If he's not good, the Bears aren't good. If he is good, the Bears have a shot. That's what it comes down to, and I think he's going to have another really good game.
I mean, that's the easy, obvious decision. I'm going to throw a curveball at you by not throwing a curveball at you.
Snap is back, looking to throw. Fields jumps up in the pocket. Now he's going to have to keep it himself. He runs, he gets the first down to midfield. Away at the 40. Fields to the 30, to the 20. Can he beat the angle? He does. He finishes in the end zone. Touchdown, 61-yard. A Sunday stroll for Justin Fields and the
It's Justin. I mean, it's honestly even a stupid category we have for the rest of this year. It's always Justin. It's going to be Justin because he's literally the team at this point, and everything that they do and everything they are is going to feed off of him. It just
and the $40 million they have annually going to the top two receivers, that's going to happen this offseason.
I still don't think that Mooney's going to get 20. I don't know. I just don't think it's going to be.
It's going to be close, man.
Close. I'm probably playing semantics. Like it's going to be some 19 point with an incentive, but I don't know. I just don't see him getting 20.
I get you.
Unders. Let's move on. Again, I'm going to run through this kind of quick because we got to get out of here. Over under 100 rushing yards for Justin Fields.
Under. 100's a big number.
I'm going to take the over. I just don't see them stopping him, and he's just going to be like, okay, watch me.
He's just going to be YOLOing it, just whatever.
Like the perfect example of that is, and I know I said we're going to run through this quick, and then I'm not running through it quick. Is the play with I think it was Phillips, right, where clearly Justin could have handed the ball off, and it would have made sense because Phillips didn't crash down.
Phillips didn't crash exactly,
and Monty could have gotten whatever it was, 6 to 7 yards, and that you would have been happy with that. But instead, Justin's like, I know I can outrun this guy, so I'm just going to take it, and I'm going to instead get 20, 30 yards. So I don't see anyone on the Detroit Lions defense that he's going to study on film and be like, well, that guy's going to outrun me. And so there's going to be probably still multiple times where he's like, I am this offense, and he's just going to go with it.
Fair.
Over under 100 rushing yards for the Lions in total. Keep in mind the Bears only allowed 46 rushing yards last week.
Different offenses, I think they're going to get over 100 just by virtue of the fact that they're not going to let Jared Goff throw to the extent that Tua did. There's a big difference between having Jameson Williams and Tyreek Hill and Mike Gesicki to Amon Brown and the misfit toys.
It's almost like you have the yards because you have to. Like what else do you, at some point?
What else can you do?
Your professional NFL team is it the war yards you want, and the answer is going to be no. So I would agree with you. I would say over. Over under 30 receiving yards for Chase Claypool.
Over.
I like it. Over under 0.5 turnovers for Justin Fields.
Under. He's been pretty safe with the ball lately, despite having some fumbles. He hasn't lost any of them yet. I think he should have had an interception last week on the defensive holding call. Now, whether or not he saw the defensive holding and tried to take a shot anyway, like Aaron Rodgers would have done, or he just misread it and just made a terrible throw, I don't know. It's hard to tell when you rewatch it.
Yeah.
But I'll say under. He's been pretty safe with the ball the last 4 weeks.
And lastly, over under 3.5 total touchdowns for Justin.
Under. I'd say he gets 3 total.
Ooh, so it's actually a lower scoring game. But obviously better. Ignore me. Moving forward. So this next section, I was just being stupid. This next section, this is normally where I pick a player from the Bears, player from the line, what team in this case the Lions.
The would you rather section.
The would you rather section, but because I'm kind of in charge of this, I'm going to change it up on you because I can. And Danny's been gracious enough to always let me just do random things. And also, we're going to face the Lions again. We can do it again later. The Lions roster sucks. I don't want to do this twice. So instead, this is going to be the himmening.
You need to stop with these damn puns. Is what you need to do.
I spent a lot of boom. I didn't even react to this graphic. I was upset about that. Like, look at that. I spent time on that.
Listen. We have a friend in one of our chats named Devontae who keeps calling him Himothy or Hemi Neutron. And earlier this year, over the past couple of years, he called it going John Wick. And because of the him thing, I called him Timothy Dalton because Timothy Dalton was James Bond. So this is me. I will call him going forward Timothy Dalton because I want him to be James Bond. Also, a highly underrated James Bond because, F. Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, I was going to get the Brosnans and all that, get all the credit. So what this is going to be, CBS Sports recently, this last week, tweeted out what their QB power rankings were. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to work my way up, just tell you the quarterback, and you just say, is Justin better? Is he a better quarterback than this quarterback?
So would you rather have Justin or the other guy?
Correct.
Got it. All right, hit me.
Sam Ehlinger.
Justin.
Zach Wilson.
Justin.
Oh my God, that was such a long pause. Kenny Pickett.
Justin.
Baker Mayfield.
Say it one more time.
Baker Mayfield.
Oh, Justin. Justin.
Andy Dalton.
Justin.
Mac Jones.
Justin.
Jared Goff.
Justin.
Marcus Mariota.
Justin.
Jacoby Brissett.
Fields.
Trevor Lawrence.
Ooh. Am I allowed to say push?
Oh, you got to pick one.
Justin at this moment in time.
With a little caveat, like the sentence afterwards. Taylor Heineke.
Oh God, Heineken time. Gah. No, it's Justin.
Matthew Stafford.
Justin.
Derek Carr.
Ooh, now we're getting harder. Justin.
Ryan Tannehill.
Justin.
Russell Wilson, Danger Witch.
Justin. But can I get Justin doing stretches and the team playing while everyone else is sleeping?
No, he's too cool for that. He's not doing that shit. Daniel Jones.
Justin.
Kyler Murray.
Ooh, probably still Kyler at this point.
All right, that's so the first one that's gone the other way. Aaron Rodgers.
At this moment, Justin. Aaron Rodgers has been putrid.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh my God, Justin.
Dak Prescott.
Dak.
Kirk Cousins.
Justin.
Justin Herbert.
Oh, Herbert.
Tom Brady.
Justin.
Tua.
Justin.
Action Jackson.
Lamar. Easily.
Joe Burrow.
Burrow?
Geno Smith.
Oh, Justin.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen. Jalen might win MVP this year.
Josh Allen.
Still Josh Allen.
Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes.
The thing that's beautiful about that, though, is there were a couple pauses, and then like Joe Burrow was like Joe Burrow, right? And like there's a couple of those. I mean, like,
so what? Did I give you not 8 or 9 maybe that were higher?
Right, he's in your top 10.
Right.
Which is awesome. When was the last time we as a Bears fan could say that there was a quarterback you would take only 9 other quarterbacks ahead of the person you currently had?
Right. That's an excellent point.
And not just that, and we're only, I think, I can't speak for you, but I think the reason you're saying that for some of the people, like maybe a Kyler Murray, maybe a Dak, I don't know if he falls as much in that category, is because we also just need to see more from Justin, right? Like it's still early. So the fact that like by the end of the season, though, you might be like, yeah, I'm taking him over Dak at this point. I'm taking.
So the hard thing for Dak is you have to understand, for as much as I love athletic quarterbacks, I think there is a beauty to playing it the traditional way. And Dak is a football robot. He plays quarterback in the most traditional sense of the word. He is 3 steps, read, 1, 2, 3, ball gone. That's just how he plays quarterback. That's how he has trained himself to play quarterback. And I think there's a beauty in it in a sense, but it also helps that his receivers are CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Dalton Schultz, and for a large time in his part of his career in Dallas, he has played with a better than average offensive line. He can afford to be that kind of quarterback.
Well, and it's kind of funny because when you say that, and I don't know if you meant it this way, but this is like the way I interpreted it. The way he plays quarterback like a robot, it's almost that the older definition of quarterback, though.
Right, the classic definition of it.
Right. Versus, I would argue that his ceiling is lower than what Justin could be ultimately, even if Justin doesn't ever play what you would say is a traditional quarterback.
Well, that, and I don't trust that ankle anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing too.
Yeah, but for better or for worse, just knowing what I know based on my background, that ankle just scares the bejesus out of me.
And John had a good comment here. I mean, this is very true. Before I call Fields a top 10, I want to see defenses adapt to him and how Fields responds.
That's totally fair.
Absolutely fair. You want to take the wins when you can. Is my thing, because you're not going to see that adaptation until probably the end of the year, or if not next year, because that usually it kind of takes a little bit for defenses to truly cycle through. That's why, for example, the Wildcat. That's why that worked for like a year and a half. It just took a second.
Ronnie Brown is in shambles right now for the shot you just took at him.
Hey, the first jersey I ever legitimately owned was a Ricky Williams, like powder blue, like whatever that is, Dolphins jersey. I loved that whole thing. But John, you are correct. I want to see how they adapt. I mean, they have the tape. Go look at it.
Go ahead.
Game predictions. All right,
let's go. Let's go.
We're almost on. Last 2 seconds.
Did you start tracking this as of last week?
No. What I'm going to do is, because I had no time this week, I'm planning on next week going back and trying to get the records.
Awesome.
Game predictions, Lions at Bears. Bears are favored, but only by 3 points at home, so basically a push almost. Who are you taking?
Bears, and they cover easily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a double-digit win here, to be completely honest.
Wow.
That's my personal pick. I think the defense will do better than we think. Like you said, the Lions have very much fallen off of that high octane, what they were doing. And again, outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, and even then, those are kind of, for me, tier 2 running backs. What are you scared of? Like if Tyreek Hill and Waddle are putting up 30 whatever on you, I can't say there. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh yeah, the Lions are gonna put up 30. I'm like, no. Because it's a Thursday night game, and because the Bears play the Falcons next week, we're looking at Falcons at Panthers. The Falcons are favored by 2.5.
I'll take the Falcons, and they cover.
I did as well. Seahawks at Buccaneers. Buccaneers are favored. I picked this one because I'm like, what the heck are the Seahawks? This is weird. This is fun. Why is it working with Geno? It's just like, I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, who do you have?
What's the number?
Oh, it's 3 Buccaneers.
The Seahawks.
I would agree. Buccaneers are in shambles. I don't know what the heck they're doing. Vikings at Bills. Bills are still favored by 3.5. I don't think Josh Allen's playing, based on my professional medical opinion, what I saw in that video. But what do you got?
I think the Vikings went outright. I think Josh Allen tries to give it a go, and then that. I mean, I don't think people realize how the UCL holds the elbow together.
It's kind of a big deal.
That's Tommy John if it's bad. Like, I don't think people realize that. Like, they hear UCL, and you're used to hearing it for baseball, Tommy John. And I'm not saying that he's going to need Tommy John. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that is a massive deal. It's like me hearing, oh, he's got UCL tenderness or a sprained UCL, which, contrary to what people want to believe, a sprain is just at very least a grade 1 tear. So that's like when I hear forearm tightness on a pitcher. like, oh, this pitcher's experiencing forearm tightness. That means usually there's pain in the UCL as well, but it's rendering here because of how a baseball is thrown. But I digress. Continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, even if he does give it the good old college try, if he's gonna try to force to play it, I think that's stupid. Because even if he can force his way through, now you are potentially going to result in a grade 3 or even a grade 4 tear that will definitely require Tommy John instead of taking a couple weeks off.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, Mason, grade 1 or a sprain is still just a minor fraying of the ligament itself.
Yeah, exactly. It's still tears. It's just like more micro tears.
Yes. Okay. Moving on.
Cardinals at Rams, mainly because I watched the Hard Knocks earlier this morning and I thought that whole thing was funny. Rams are favored by 1.5 points.
Rams are going to win by much more than 1.5 points because Kyler Murray is going to be too busy playing the new God of War.
I did buy that today.
Because of course you did.
I'm excited, man. I love God of War. God of War is fantastic. I'm going to take the Cardinals just because the Rams are weird this year. I mean, between the Cup issues, between Stafford's issues, between them not having running backs for real, I still don't understand what really happened to the Akers thing and how they basically tried giving him away and no one would take him, which was still very odd. They're a quiet. There's a problem there versus the Cardinals are just seemingly a more loud. There's a problem there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Akers thing, he just looks like he's lost his explosiveness. He's a big, strong, fast running back, and he doesn't look fast anymore.
And last pick, Cowboys at Packers. Cowboys favored by 4.5.
Cowboys win and cover.
Same thing. The Packers are falling apart, and I am loving every second of it. Let's finish up with our bold predictions. On offense, I have that someone other than Justin Fields throws a touchdown for the Bears. Crazy. And on defense, I have that both Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker get takeaways this week. What about you?
I will say that Dominique Robinson finds his way back to the quarterback and gets at least one sack on defense. And on offense, I'm going to say that Chase Claypool flirts with 100 yards receiving.
Ooh, that would really help. I have a bet going with someone on Twitter that he'd average, I think, over 35 yards for the rest of the season.
I actually saw this. It's a charity bet. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So for anyone, I'm going to try to find – I have to find the tweet because I need to save it so I can cash in when I get it. That if Chase Claypool averages more than 35 yards per game for the rest of the season, it's like donating $100 to charity that one of us pick. If it's under 100, under 35, I will donate the money to charity. So keep promoting. Yay, Chase, get those yards. That's all we got for today. Danny, anything you have left to say before we log off here?
No, man. Just everyone enjoy Thursday Night Football and enjoy a Bears hopeful W this Sunday. It's been a fun show as it is per usual.
All right, everyone. Bear down.
Toodaloo.